Let's go.
There's nothing I love more than exploring the void. The edges of games' worlds have always fascinated me, and by this point that's probably obvious to those who have watched the channel. If I'm not spewing nostalgic memories, I'm probably talking about the great beyond. And in this video I find myself faced with an all too familiar situation. Mario wants to grab a coin, but Mario can't. Not because he's forbidden from touching them like in an epic gamer challenge, but because it's a lot more complex than just collecting fat stacks of cash waiting for us like in normal levels. You see, the coins we have our eyes on today are by far the most absurd coins I have ever come across when it comes to sheer distance. And beyond that, at the point of writing this, I don't even know if these coins can actually be obtained in any way, shape, or form, cheating included. In the Super Mario Galaxy games, we've talked about coins sealed within blocks that were really far away, but that distance is just a teeny tiny fraction to the distance we're talking about. Because today, we're aiming to collect 23 out-of-bounds coins in Super Mario 3D Land. Coins that are well beyond the skybox that contain the entire game world. And, like in the vastness of space, one small mishap can certainly spell disaster. So buckle up, because we're going beyond the cosmos for some pocket change. Over the past few years, I've watched a lot of games grow in the indie scene, and that's why I'm pretty excited about partnering with Konami and Yakuza for Scale Attack. In the hack-and-slash platformer adventure Scale Attack, you play as Scully as you try to defend the underworld from human invaders. With your trusty bone sword and bat companion Ember, you'll battle your way through lots of different environments trying to save your home. My favorite part about Scale Attack is how much freedom you have when it comes to mobility. You can fluidly move through environments with ease, and it makes combat all about your approach. If you love puzzles, platforming, and a bizarre cast of quirky characters, then Scale Attack is for you. You can take it with you on the go with Nintendo Switch, or pick it up for PC/Steam, Xbox, or PS4. Scale Attack just released today, so be sure to click the link in the description below for the platform of your choice. I was super excited when presented with this opportunity because this is an indie game that I've got to see grow each year while at conventions like PAX East. Yakuza is an indie studio that put a lot of hard work into this, and it definitely shows. And a huge thanks to Konami for sponsoring this video and supporting me as a creator. So when picking up Super Mario 3D Land a few months ago to really dive into it, there was one concept that I put on the back burner for quite a while, and it was this video. Honestly, it's been about 4 or 5 months now since I started this video, but I stopped halfway through because I ran into some issues with accomplishing my goal. But before getting into that, let's set the stage and how I got to where I currently am. So in Super Mario 3D Land, there are bonus stages that take place later on in the game that are based on previous stages that you have already cleared. Typically, they mix up the in-level objects and enemies, and it's a bit more difficult. So the level we want to first talk about is World 2-2. This level basically has Mario go through an underground area for a majority of the level until the very end when he pops out for the flag. It's a pretty simple stage that is reinvented later on to give us a bit more of a challenge. However, one thing that is important to note is that in the original version of the stage, there was a secret room you could access that contained 23 coins spelling out 3D. When the level was revisited for Special 6-3, this area was scrapped and inaccessible. However, because the level designers simply duplicated the previous level's file as a base to work off of, that means all the original objects were copied over initially before being manually deleted to rework the level. The problem is that they didn't delete everything completely, and those 23 coins still remain on this particular stage. People have documented these coins on scrap resource websites like the Cutting Room Floor, but oftentimes full context isn't touched on when outlining gaming discoveries. So, much like the Super Mario Galaxy games, the playable regions for every level are always contained in that one level's map file. This is why you can sometimes look up in the sky in Super Mario Galaxy and see weird squares or spheres in the distance. The game developers simply store their underground or associated regions elsewhere on the map. Normally, they try to make the distance great enough so that the objects don't load in when we're looking at them, but sometimes they misjudge the distance, which gives us the odd spectacle we've encountered. So in 3D Land's case, the room with the coins isn't stored near the level at all. The level itself is basically a giant rectangle, and the flag area is positioned above the blacked out area that is the level's interior. They honestly could have just stored this coin room off to the left, and near the darkened interior because it would have never been seen otherwise. But they did something different. Something that I honestly haven't encountered yet in some of the other 3D Mario games I've explored. The room that these coins appear in is extremely far out of bounds outside the skybox, and it's not just right outside the skybox. It's actually about half the distance of a skybox over. This is really far away. This room doesn't exist in Special 6-3 at all either, so the coins are out there floating by themselves. So, to my knowledge, there is no sort of exploit that would allow us to grab these coins in any way, shape, or form. So I found myself enabling a moon jump to try my best to get over there. And that's when I realized just how awful this was going to be. So there's 3 major problems with attempting to make Mario move to where we need to go. The only true accessible point for going after these coins is at the end of the level, since the interior of the stage is essentially boxed in. But the big issue is that this entire area is littered with death planes. The entire dungeon is padded with them, as if they are like insulation. And even going outwards from the flagpole area, you'll hit them on all sides. The only real way to get past them is to toggle between the dungeon and the flagpole loading areas while moving up and around. With that, you can break free. But at this point, I'm sure you're noticing the second problem. The camera is not moving. Unlike the Galaxy games, the camera does not follow Mario everywhere he goes. Super Mario 3D Land's cameras typically snap to follow along on the stage, and it pretty much never breaks from its planned paths. So in order to proceed, we'll need to manually adjust the camera in the game. We're manipulating the flagpole area's static camera to move Mario into view, and with that, we'll have to keep manually adjusting the camera as we move on. It's an absolute pain in the butt to work like this. And to make matters worse, the camera leads to our next problem. Problem number 3. Objects don't even load when the camera is looking at them. We're basically fudging the camera here, and it's Mario's positioning that will cause objects to become active, which is what makes this coin hunt even more troublesome, because the coins we're looking for are now invisible. They're out there, somewhere, but we won't be able to see them until we're practically about to pick them up. So we're looking for coins that can't be seen, with Mario floating through space, while utilizing a camera that isn't following us. Yeah, throw all that into a pot and you have a recipe for insanity, which leads us to where we are right now. Coinless. The only reference points we have for finding these coins are the absolute edges of the skybox. Now, if this wasn't Super Mario Galaxy, this would be a lot harder, since the skybox is tied to the camera and the camera moves with the player. But in 3D Land, the fixed camera means leaving the skybox is easy. The skybox itself has 8 outer points where the edges change direction. The coins happen to run parallel to the orientation of the stage, since the stage is a straight line. Since stages are typically centered in skyboxes, we can utilize this line to lead us to the rightmost corner of the skybox. This is the easiest point to get to in terms of proximity towards the coins. If we don't alter our camera's angle, in theory it'll stay parallel to the map so we can utilize it to keep us aligned. However, that also means we can't really see where we're going either. And even if we did make it to the edge of the skybox, the distance from the edge to where the coins are is almost an entire skybox in distance itself. So this is when I decided to create a line of coins to guide me through the void. This will allow me to stay on track while moving outwards once the skybox disappears due to the distance the camera is from it. Because once that happens, it's just Mario in a blue void with no references to where your position is. So think of this as a breadcrumb trail to the coin motherlode. However, when attempting to find my coin trail, I ran into a huge issue. I was certain they should have been there, but each time I checked, they weren't. So to test things out, I added a coin and a clock to the start of the map, and they loaded just fine. That's when I realized I made a grave mistake. So problem number 3 was actually a way bigger problem than I anticipated, and I learned this situation is actually a combination of a few things. Mario's positioning actually doesn't do anything in regards to objects loading at all. It only is used to determine where the camera should be tracking. So problem number 2 is also a really big issue, as the default camera is locked to the stage, meaning even if Mario were out there right next to the coins in the void, they would never load under any circumstances. The only way to get the coins to appear would be to mod the camera to follow Mario out of bounds. Because of this, these coins will never appear in the game despite them existing out there. The camera cannot leave the constraints that the level gives it. So these invisible coins will be floating out in space, uncollected, for pretty much all of eternity. I mean, you could move them into level bounds or modify the camera, but at that point, it sort of ruins the magic of this forgotten set of level assets. The 23 coins no one has ever obtained in Super Mario 3D Land. It was quite the trip, and although we ended up empty-handed, it was still a blast trying my best to get them. Before I sign off, I once again want to thank Konami and Yakuza for partnering with me for the launch of Skeletak. We just gave it a whirl over on Swanky Zone, so you should definitely check it out. That video should be appearing on screen now, so give it a click. And with that, thanks for tuning in for my trip into the void, and until my next video, cheers!